Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? My name is Kyle, and this is the Kyle Suggs Show. And if you know but the thumbnail, you know I have a special guest, and I'm not going to waste any time bringing her on. Yeah, let's do this. So, Miss Alexis Suggs, how are you doing tonight?
Fine, thank you for having me.
Why am I nervous tonight?
Because I'm not good at towing the line, maybe.
Okay. Well,
I
we're
feel
gonna.
the same.
Okay. Well, in case you guys don't know, my wife and I don't always see eye to eye on things. Mostly. But she's a little bit more hardcore than I am, and I want to keep my YouTube channel. So I have my mouse hovering right over this icon here that says YouTube. I can click it off anytime if it gets crazy. Go over to Rumble, and the signal will still be there. We're streaming on Rumble and Facebook. So, anyway, everybody, thank you for coming on. Alexis, thank you for joining us tonight. So this is my wife. You guys didn't know. She's beautiful. She's smart, intelligent. We've known her for a long time, and I'm going to let her share a little bit about herself and her interest. And so let's just kick it off a little bit. How did we get together? How did we meet? And tell us what's important to you right now.
Sure. We both volunteered with the JCs, which is an organization for young professionals like 18 to 40, where you can network with other young professionals, but also you can kind of run projects. It teaches you how to write a business plan. It just offers you a lot of or offers you the opportunity to learn a lot of really great skills that can help you both personally and professionally. And so we volunteered with that group. And that was, probably 13 years ago now.
Like 2011, I think, somewhere in there.
Oh, I thought it was 2009, but maybe you're right. Maybe two. Is it whatever?
No, I think you joined. Yeah. You joined in 2000. You joined in 2009, but I was president 2011. And I
yes.
think yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. And so neither of us are really involved in that group anymore, but we do appreciate what it gave us and opportunities to learn and grow for sure. And now we are parents to a 6-year-old little boy. And so my days are filled with mostly taking care of him. I do homeschool him as well and transport him to and from, his activities as many moms of young children do. And so that for sure is a big passion, homeschooling, as well as we're just trying to be more independent in terms of our food, in terms of just trying to do more things for ourselves and on that road to self-sufficiency.
Let's talk about that a little bit. About you mentioned food. I'm gonna get to that secondly, but let's talk about the homeschooling aspect because that's a big deal to me. And people on this channel, Kali Fortnana, has talked about that, and so has Marty, and so has Nicole, and other people have really had interest in homeschooling. Why do you think homeschooling is? I know why it's important, but why do you think it's growing such that it is now?
I think the things that we didn't like about traditional school, those reasons have grown more and more and more over the last 3 years. So the biggest one is that many parents, they didn't like their kid learning 100% on a screen during COVID, or they didn't like how organized maybe the school that their children attended was. So I have known of both students and parents who would say, there were kids who either just flat out never logged in at all and just totally went MIA, where there were times when it was like, okay, this day we're going to be in person, but then this day we're going to be online. But then the next week we would switch the days that we're going to be online versus in person. And so that can be very frustrating for a lot of parents. I don't blame them. They said, you know what, forget it. We're just going to do it all at home, all online. I think there's another segment of the population that once they heard what their kids were actually learning, they thought, this is a joke. They're not even learning things that are valuable, things that they need to be learning. And that's totally separate from all the woke propaganda that they were learning. They just thought that they were wasting their time. So I think those parents also wanted to pull their kid in. And then for sure there was an element of I hear what the teacher is saying, or I hear what the other kids are saying, and I don't want that. You heard stories of parents who would be there with their kid, and there were actually abuses taking place at other kids' houses on the screen, so that now all the kids in the class can see another child being abused. So there was just a whole host of reasons, I think, that parents were like, you know what, this is not for us.
Yeah, we saw a movie. I'm not sure if you saw this movie or not, but it was Kirk Cameron's film. It was called The Homeschool. I forget the last name of it, but it was a very fantastic film. And it just showed really a 101 educational level of what homeschooling is about. It debunked a lot of the misnomers, a lot of the controversies, like your kid is not actually going to be socialized. When you hear someone say that your son's not going to be socialized because of homeschooling, what do you say to that question? That's a big one that I hear a lot.
Yeah, I think what they mean to say is that your kid will not know how to interact with other kids. But the truth is, the way your child interacts is often a mirror of how you interact. So if you yourself never talk to anyone anywhere, are super, super shy, feel uncomfortable around other people, I could see how you then would think your child will be like that, because that's how you are. But if you, have a healthy self-image, if you are not afraid of other people, then I don't think your child will either, because when you go out in public, you actually will encourage them to talk to other people. You won't view people necessarily as strangers. I think they get how they treat other people primarily from their parents, if they're around their parents. And to add to that, what I think is really funny is that when kids are left to their own devices, like at school, like why do parents or adults assume that when a child is around mostly other kids all day, somehow they will learn the proper way or a correct, nice way to interact with other kids? Like, kids can be vicious. So to say that they're less likely to have good social skills if they're at home, I think, is not really thinking that through. It's more of a knee-jerk reaction. Kind of like, if you're plant-based and people say, well, how do you get your protein? It's just it's a repetitive talking point that
Right.
people just say knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. I don't think anybody really knows what they mean when they even say that. So
Right.
That's why I kind of brought that up. So, it's funny, I was about to bring Ethan up because he has been around this channel for a while. He interviewed me first. He's from the UK. He's an awesome kid. And I got a lot to say about Ethan, but this is something I will talk to you about, to Alexis, but I got to just talk about this kid a little bit. This kid's awesome. He's in the UK. He's doing street interviews. He sent me a video of him doing interviews. I'm going to have to bring him on here and actually have him talk about that. It's so fascinating. He's been very supportive. He just gave us £2. Thank you so much. But before you even did that, Ethan, I was thinking about you because you also joined as a member, and I want to just thank you for that as well. But he has a question for you, Alexis. He has the question, what do you think about transgenderism?
I have a lot of different thoughts about it. So my first one is that regardless of what you think or what you feel, you cannot change the biology of how you were born. It doesn't matter what you slice and dice, what you were born, that is the gender that you are. But more than just that's the gender that you are, even the whole concept of gender, when people really study that and they start going back into history, maybe into the 70s and 60s, when that first kind of started to take root, that concept of gender, it's really just, it has an agenda all its own. It's not as innocent, I think, as maybe some people think. I was kind of raised with this idea of, well, your sex is your biology and your gender is how you feel about yourself. Mm-hmm. But it goes a lot further, and it's a lot deeper than that. I don't think that we're at a place, maybe in society that's how it was in the 90s, but that is not the case today. It has run so far off the rails that people think that they're born with male anatomy are women and they're just as justified or they're just as valid of a woman as I am, who, you know, has birthed a child. And it's hard to not laugh at that idea. I do not downplay the mental and emotional suffering that some people who feel confused in that area feel. But similar to if someone is suffering from really bad depression or anxiety or agoraphobia, it still doesn't mean that I now validate their thoughts and feelings that you're right, you should never leave your house. You're right, you should never, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's fully
No,
what you're looking for.
that's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. In fact, Ethan and I and Nicole had a live stream, and I talked about. I mentioned this to Ethan, where I said, if we validate this thought that you can do something that you can't, it can be very dangerous. Because what if I thought that I could fly? In fact, not Christopher Reeves, but the original Superman back in the 50s. His name was Reeve. I think it's George Reeve, I believe. When he was Superman at the time, he actually had to deal with going to schools and stuff to tell people, do not jump off your roof with a cape on, because they thought that they could fly. And it became a big problem when it came on TV. And so if you have this thought that's wrong, it can be dangerous.
Yeah, and it seems like the fact that so many more young people, I mean, I know you've seen that study, maybe some people in the audience have seen a study that came out fairly recently that showed different generations and people in different generations, how many of those people identified as transgender. And every generation, it went up and up and up to the point where the most recent generation, I think, is something like between a certain age demographic, like 13 to 19, it's like 40% of those people that are girls in that age group think they're somewhere on that spectrum outside of just boy, girl, heterosexual. They think they're trans, I think they're queer, non-binary. I mean, all the different labels that there are. And I think that just goes to show, not that society is more accepting of that, because I'm not sure that society, just because it exists doesn't mean we're more accepting of it. But I think that it means the propaganda is being pushed even harder and harder.
Let's talk a little bit about What is a Woman. And first of all, have you seen the movie? And number two, the guy who did it, what's his name again? The guy who did
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh, thank you. Well, let's talk about this first. Have you seen the movie?
I have.
Did you like the movie?
I did, yes. I thought what's sad to me is that he was getting so many accolades and people were talking about how great it is. And I thought, this is like kindergarten. Like, it's not that I thought the movie was bad. It's that the movie I thought was like, duh. I mean, maybe because that's stuff that we talk about all the time. And that's stuff that we, kind of have very strong opinions on. But I thought, what a shame that we even had to take time to make a movie like that. Like and I think that's probably how, if you saw the movie, that's how the people in Africa would have viewed it. Like, you flew all the way here to ask us this.
Exactly.
It's like saying, is grass green?
Yes. And here's the thing, guys.
What other color is it? Maybe brown in the winter.
Yes, we are married, and yes, we saw the movie together, but I totally forgot and didn't want to say, never ask a question you don't know exactly the answer for. And I got stuff, lights everywhere, and I got stuff that I've set up, and I just forgot that little thing. We did watch it together, and so I wanted to get that because I didn't want you to say, well, I didn't see the movie yet. But yeah, the movie was fantastic. And the second part of that question was, well, actually more of a statement. Matt Walsh had a really good answer to this. And Ethan, if you want to chime in on the chat here, they asked him, what's the thing about transgenderism? And I thought he was going to say something really elaborate, whatever, some scientific answer. He said, no, it's gender activism. Gender activism is what's driving it. I was like, wow, that's pretty much correct, right? I mean, it's like it's just being pushed, right?
Yeah. And the sad thing is that even if you could somehow snap your fingers or or do a Thanos and the world would be how they want it to be, and that everyone can be whatever they want, everything is accepted just as equally, I don't think that they mentally or emotionally would be satisfied, because it's a very deep rooted illness and problem. And we've talked about another YouTube channel that I watch
Steve Dace
called The Patriot, had a really good take on this, and that these people are broken, just damaged people. They very often had either trauma very early on in their life, really bad relationships with their parents, specifically their father. And so I don't ever see them being happy or satisfied, because what they say is the problem isn't really the root of the problem.
Yeah, it's a very complicated thing to talk about for me, because Ethan is very, very good at this particular issue. In fact, I think it's a passion issue for him. If I am at liberty of saying that, Ethan, if not, let me know. But he does a really good job of clarifying it and talking about it. And it's just so nuanced. But at the same time, I think the activism part of it makes it easy for all of us who don't really have the knowledge of the subject more palatable, right? Because personally, if I mentioned this to Ethan and to other people as well. As a person who has darker skin than you, Alexis, to go through the things that I haven't gone through personally. I haven't seen much persecution at all. But let's just say we lived 40 years ago or 50 years ago in the Deep South. It would be very difficult for me to take the fact of another person putting a shoe polish on his face and acting like he's oppressed and trying to get the set asides and benefits and the sympathy for just putting shoe polish on his face. And I know I'm not trying to downplay what they're feeling, but at the same time, it is worse for a woman who has whole separate experiences and to be trivialized to just boobs and, what I'm saying, a vagina, and just to say that all of a sudden that makes me a woman. And Macy Gray, who's definitely not a conservative, said it. And it's like, and now they're bashing her for saying something that she is a unique individual with special, help me out here with what women go through, experiences.
Well,
to me, it just really irritates me to high heaven.
Right. Well, if you think back to the women in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s who would profess that things were not equal for women, right? They would profess that we're not treated the same in the workplace. They would say that, society doesn't treat us the same, and that we're kind of behind the eight ball in all these different categories. And in some ways, they had some validity maybe in some of their arguments. I mean, I know personally my grandmother, when she has had experiences where she was not allowed to, let's say, take out a credit card without her husband signing for the credit card, despite the fact that she had a job as a nurse, making her own money. There were people who you weren't even allowed to do other things without your husband either co-signing or being for a long time. I mean, but so I get that, but then to go now to where we are, if you want to carry around some of that, well, women have been oppressed or women weren't allowed to do this or this or that, and now you're going to take on that identity. But up until 2 weeks ago, if you in theory were a man, you could do whatever you wanted. But now all of a sudden you're going to take on these negative things that you never actually had to experience. I feel like, even though legally there's no difference anymore, there are some things, I think every woman can probably admit to. She's had some experiences that are unique to women. Men don't typically get catcalled as much as women do. Every woman, I'm sure, has had that experience in
all
her
time
life.
For me.
But so it's just a fact of life that men view women differently than they view other men. I'm not even really complaining about it, because I think it's kind of pointless to complain about that. But I do feel like these people that all of a sudden now they're going to say literally like 2 days before, you could call me Sam, but now you need to call me Sarah, and you need to view me exactly the same as someone looking at me when you never actually went through anything negative being Sam, or certainly not any of the same negative things. I don't really like that. I also feel like all the trans women are hyper sexualized. They only are what they perceive the extreme of womanhood is from a strictly aesthetic point of view. And almost all women would admit, like, we don't look like that all the time. We don't wear makeup and heels and, have, like spend hours thinking about our outfits. Now, girls do, typically younger women maybe do, but you get to a certain place, especially once you've been married and have kids, it's like, we got a lot of things on our plate. I am not going to spend an hour and a half doing my makeup every single day. And so I think it's trivializing women. It's we're so much more than just what we look like. And you work so hard to look like us when most of us, even if we can't tell that you're a man, we know something's not right. Kind of like we've watched movies and I can tell that it's CGI.
Right.
Because I know something is not right. I can't really explain it. I just know that's not a person.
Right.
Or that's not a live person. I can tell this is not a woman. Or I'll say, wow, that's a really, I don't even know. They're not masculine looking women, but sometimes women where they look too feminine, you can just tell that something's not right about them.
Wow. That's really interesting. So let me just do a quick break here in terms of a little bit of house cleaning. If you have comments in the thing going on here, there's a bunch of comments coming on. We have Jackie on, and we have Miss, let me see, I'm not sure if you're, I guess, yeah, you are a woman. I see your picture. Kazimran Kyrios, if I pronounce that correctly or incorrectly, let me know. Just comment, and I will put a star by your comment, and we'll get to it. Trust me, we'll definitely get to them. Hopefully, at some point in time, I won't be able to get to them all, which means we have a good problem. So, but for now, we have enough people that I can actually go through all the comments and respond to them in kind. So, Alexis, thank you so much for that input there, because I mean, coming from a woman, it's for, I don't get it, and I just feel bad for women who've gone through the experience of childhood, and not even childhood per se, but the experiences you mentioned. Someone just said here that his grandmother went through the same thing with this deal with having, I guess, a credit card, having to have permission to. I mean, that's so degrading, if you ask me. So,
but this is what the founders knew. They knew that society was not as good as it could be, and they made a way for us to get better. They made a way, but they knew that, things would evolve, things would grow, things would change. We wouldn't, we look back on how things were maybe in the 60s or the 70s or even the 50s and think like, oh, how barbaric. But do you really think that people in 2050 won't look back on us and think the same thing? How arrogant are we to think that we have arrived? I assure you, in 2050 and in 2060, there will be people who look back on people who lived in 2022 and thought, I can't believe you actually fill in the blank.
You killed your babies. I mean, one of my best arguments about people who are judging the South for having slavery, which I'm not for, don't trip like that. It was a bad thing, but I think abortion's bad as well. But it was legal at one point in our history, and we look back on them and say how bad they were in terms of having that situation, the institution in place. And like to your point, 2050, 2060, they could very well look back and they'll say, really, God, did you really have to kill a baby? I mean, and so I think it's just a matter of moral relativism that I think we need to be aware of, and that you ultimately need to go back to the biblical framework as to what you alluded to, because the frameworkers were believers in God and the Bible, many of them, and they put that in there because they knew eventually if they kept that framework in place, it would work itself out. Unfortunately, it took a civil war for slavery, but, here we are.
Yeah.
So
even in things that have nothing to do with like, here's another example. It's easy for us now to look back at the people in the 30s and say, gosh, why did it take us so long to get involved in World War II? Why did it take until we were directly attacked when we knew what was going on in a lot of these other countries? Well, World War I was not that long before that. And World War I was so grotesque and so gruesome and so deadly. We didn't want to jump right into something else. We had just seen tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of our men die not that long before, not, one generation really before. And so I just think, again, it's really easy to look back on people of the past and think we wouldn't behave like them or we're better than them. But I think that is incorrect. And very often it's those same people that think, well, I would never, blah, blah, blah. They're the first ones in line, actually, when push comes to shove, that they fold.
Yes, I got a really good story for you real quickly here. And I want to make sure I had the right person. And it was John Quincy Adams. And John Quincy Adams was a president. He was the son of our second president, John Adams. And he wasn't looked at as the best president of all time by far. However, when he left the presidency, he became a congressperson. And I'm going to say the story wrong, but I'm going to look it up and tell you the right way. But essentially, the gist of it is he went to Congress session and he did something where he stood up against slavery every single day, either wrote a petition or what he did. I don't know what it was. It was very consistent for like 17 years. And they were like, dude, why are you doing this? Every vote that you put up here is being turned down. No one cares. You're being laughed at. It's not going to be put away. But he was consistent for 17 years. And I believe after he died, a few years after he died, that's when slavery was essentially, I'm not sure what happened at that point, but basically because of his effort, it actually was, the slave trade was ended I don't have my facts here, but my point is that he was consistent. And when he died, that was when the fruits of his labor came to fruition, but he was never alive to see it. It was just his consistency to actually have the wherewithal and the steadfastness to be consistent in making his point across and make people understand that this is wrong. Mm-hmm. So Jackie here says Dave Chappelle does a great bit about carrying around $25,000 in a backpack. He compares that to a woman's vulnerability. Wow. What do you think about that?
He compares that to a woman's vulnerability. Yes, I do think that most men have no idea really how vulnerable we are. I think when I walk around, I don't think that's in the top of my mind, but I do think that at a very low level, it affects our decisions in that, I don't really, I don't know. I don't walk down maybe somewhere by myself, or I wouldn't, walk to my car at night, but it's so ingrained into you that it's not really like, oh, don't do that because something bad could happen. Your whole thing is different. And there have definitely been instances where I've been out with someone or I heard about someone doing something that was a man and thought, wow, like that must be so freeing to just do that and never for a second thought think, oh, I shouldn't do that, but I think for most women, it's just so ingrained in you that it really isn't even a conscious thought anymore.
That's a really good thought to have it such that a man can really understand and feel, because it's hard. People always sympathize, but it's very difficult to empathize, to put your feet in their shoes and kind of feel what they're feeling. In some ways it's impossible, but 25 grand in a backpack walking down. Yeah, I can kind of see me feeling very vulnerable to that. So, and especially if you think about it, if you go back and look at in the past when we were not quite as civilized, I mean, they would have, the Enlightenment period and you were gentlemanly, but there was still a section of the public that was still untamed and that men could pretty much do whatever they wanted. And it must have been really scary to be a woman on the frontier.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
It was a really big deal when both Elvis Presley's wife as well as Tina Turner, who came out and said, their husband made them sleep with them when they didn't want to. And many people for many years believed that was not possible. A husband could not rape his wife because he was entitled to be with her. And that is, like, we all know, because we know who Elvis Presley is. And so only up until very, very recently did women really gain full, I think, not just legal standing, but even the perception that we have, the right to say no, or the right to, I'm falling short on my words.
Well, Jonathan. I'll share the story with everybody. Jonathan had a little altercation. I mean, it's really, really minor. The guy's 6 years old, and these other kids around the neighborhood. They had an argument over something. I don't know what it was, a ball, football, or something like that. But the fact was, this little 2-year-old girl basically got mad at him for some reason, and then she went hysterical and had basically the entire crew not attack him, but basically confront him and say, "Hey, why were you mean to my sister?" And I'm like, Jonathan, you can't be mean to. Well, I think he reached his hand out and may have touched her or something like that, and she blew out of proportion. I said,
"Oh, he touched our chicken, and then he touched her." And
there you go.
"Oh, you're gonna get salmonella." Like,
that's what it was. Yeah. So
kids tease other kids.
But she blew it way out of proportion, and I don't hope this isn't offensive. But I told him, I said, little girls, they kind of do that. I mean, they tend to be emotional liars in a lot of ways. And trust me, men do a lot of bad things too. But I think women, particularly, even my daughter, I would say. So I'm not trying to be offensive, but I'm just trying to say that tends to be something. And he can't put his hands on a little girl, regardless, because that can happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about this here. I didn't know just stay on the subject, but since it's pretty interesting, Ethan says women typically select partners that are above or equal to them in social hierarchy. Exactly like Alexis picked someone definitely below her, but we'll give you a pass.
Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot because, if at our core, women want to be protected and want to have security, then it would only make sense that the majority of women choose someone that they feel will be able to provide those things. And typically someone in a lower social status would not be able to provide those things.
Yeah. How come nobody goes from man to woman and comes out wearing a t-shirt and comfortable slacks? I would never put on a get-ups for that Caitlyn Jenner puts on.
Yeah.
And this is the same jacket that comes on our show a lot here. And that's a good statement there as well. See, we got easily, I disagree. My opinion, totalitarian. Okay, this is different. Governments are just around the corner. Advancements in technology, especially AI, is going to make it too easy. Wow, we should have a whole show on that. Nanotechnology and see. Alexis, on this note, I'm going to give you a little bit of airtime here to say what you want to say in this area. But what are some of the people that you like to talk about? You mentioned Jordan Peterson. I mentioned Steve Dace, but are there any other people that you like to listen to that get your information from? Because you're very well versed, and I bounce off ideas from you all the time. But who do you like in the social media sphere or the pundit sphere?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like when I'm out and maybe I'll meet a new person, or even just talking with a new friend more deeply about how we like politics, and they'll be like, "Oh, have you heard of ABC?" And I'm like, yes. Like, between the two of us, I feel like we listen to everyone. So if you don't listen to them, more than likely I do, and vice versa. But for sure, I watch Steve Dace every day. And if for some reason I miss it, it gets posted later on that day. I try to watch it live, but if I can't, then I watch it later on that day. But we're getting to a point where even within the conservative or Republican space, there is for sure a separation and I cleansing probably isn't the right word, but if you're establishment and you are not more hardcore, then I just really don't have time for you. So the mass majority of people that 5 years ago I would have listened to, I can't stomach anymore. And so it's pretty much everyone that's on television. I mean, even Tucker, sometimes I don't watch his show, but I get clips of, his show here and there on social media. And I probably would agree with almost everything that he'll say. But what I don't like are the things that he won't talk about. And different people have different reasons why they say he won't talk about those things. We'll never know what the reasons are why he won't talk about certain topics. But I find that a little frustrating. But for sure, Steve Deace is like the biggest political person that I watch. But I'm really into gardening and I'm really into homesteading. And so there tends to be a lot of crossover between people that are conservative and then people that homestead. And so sometimes their political thoughts or thoughts on how the economy is doing will bleed over into those channels, if that makes sense.
Yeah, let's talk about homesteading a little bit. She promised. Well, she didn't promise me anything. We talked about this for the show. I just said I'm worried about me having to click the YouTube button here, but I don't mind teetering on a little bit of controversy here. But in terms of the homesteading, we have chickens, by the way. I think they're fascinating creatures. I would never have thought in 1,000 years I would have chickens, but you get attached to them a little bit. But in terms of homesteading, we see what's going on with the markets. We see what's going on with the food supply. We see what's going on with potentially the soil. And so you have people on YouTube who are not necessarily conservative, but you said it's a crossover. Can you explain what you're seeing across the board? Because you listen to several, not just 2 or 3, like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. And I'm sure many of them who don't talk politics, you can kind of hint somewhere in there that there's some sort of conservatism element in there. Do you find that? And why do you think that is?
Yes, I do. Because people that like to garden, and I don't mean flowers or, bushes, but specifically people who want to grow their own food. And then even more so people that want to preserve their own food so that they are eating what they grow. They often, not always, but often feel like especially more recently, they can't trust that what they want will be at the store. They can't trust that if it is at the store, it's going to be in the price that they want to pay. And they want food that's cleaner. They're well aware of all the pesticides and herbicides and chemicals that go into their food. And so they want food that, fits more in line with what they want to intake. And having those attitudes also coincide with having an attitude of, I want to take more responsibility for my life. I want to take more responsibility for my food, and wanting to take more responsibility of certain areas of your life, whether it's your food, your finances, maybe more responsibility for your relationships. Like in general, taking more responsibility of areas of your life does not coincide with the Democratic viewpoint, or certainly not the official party platforms, because the official party platforms are more government intervention in as many areas as humanly possible. So those two things, I don't see how someone who's really radical about growing their own food, preserving their own food, could then also be really radical that, the best thing for America is to elect more progressive candidates.
Let's talk about the subject of election integrity, because I don't want to hold back on that subject matter at all when we get to the Rumble section. But it goes same thing with Second Amendment. Because Black women are one of the highest new gun ownership demographic in the country over this past couple of years. And what's going to end up happening is, and we're seeing it now, is that Black women are going to start to leave the Democrat Party because they want to maintain those rights. And so I see it not just with homesteading, which actually homesteading does incorporate gun ownership for that same reason, but also if you're in an urban area, you may not be able to plant a garden, but you can protect your home the same way, or walk the street without worrying about someone attacking you. And so I just see the Democrat philosophy or their platform is just unattainable. It cannot be sustained. And they have to do things like cheat. I'm sorry, they have to cheat. So I want to talk about that in another section, obviously, because I want to go all in on that. I don't want to hold back at all on that. But your thoughts on that, Alexis, in terms of not just homesteading, but homeschooling, people that you may know like 5 years ago who would never have done anything political, but all of a sudden now you're seeing they're even now saying, you know what, this isn't right in terms of what the Democrats are doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
They're kind of like, enough is enough. Everybody has their threshold of what they feel are things that they don't agree with, but they kind of tolerate. But everyone eventually gets to the point where they're like, I can't tolerate this anymore. And in schools, there also is a segment of the population. And it's funny, you see this a lot of times actually with, or at least I've seen videos of parents going to school board meetings, and they're very often Black parents who are telling the school board, we are not down with this racist, BLM nonsense. We are not down with you saying that we're being oppressed all the time and white people are oppressing us. And I certainly appreciate that. I think it carries more weight, sadly, than if I were to say it. And so I think there's definitely a segment of the population that feels like, like Martin Luther King didn't work so hard so that we could now have an entire generation that actually is more racist than they were in 1952, because they think that all white people are oppressors or all Black people are oppressed. And I guess if you're outside those two groups, we just don't care about you at all. I don't know. And so they pulled their kids out of school for that reason. There's a whole other segment of parents who feel like you should not be discussing anything sexual in any type of way with a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. It wasn't that long ago when my son thought that we had the same parts. He had no concept that I'm different than him, and I still think to a certain extent, he knows something's different, but he doesn't, really know anything more than that. And I'm totally satisfied with that for now. There's no sexuality to a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. They really don't have any clue about that. If they ever have little crushes here and there, it probably is because their parents have said, oh, is that your girlfriend? Is that your boyfriend? Like, they have no feelings that are of a sexual nature towards another human being. Really, until they go through puberty, those things just don't exist. If they have what you might call a crush, it's really because that person is their friend. There's no sexual component to an 8-year-old, having a little boyfriend or girlfriend. And so this whole movement of they already know who they're attracted to, the idea that they could even be gay, at 4, 5, 6 years old, it's insane. And it's really pedophilic. I'm not sure if that's an appropriate word, because you're projecting sexuality onto a being that is incapable of having a sexual thought at that age.
100% agree. I'm going to take about a 2-minute break here for a couple of reasons. One, I want to fix some of your audio that's going on there. It's better now, but I also want to just level set some of the things that are going on. I hear some clicking and stuff as well. I want to fix on my PC as well. And 2 minutes is a good break time. So I'm going to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to do a little bit of talk here about people who came on. Mark Jackson, he's awesome. Can't say enough good things about Mark Jackson. And Jackie became a member on the channel, and Ethan as well. I thought you already were, Ethan. Maybe you went to a different tier. And so if you guys want to support the channel, you can do what Jackie and Ethan did and several others, is go to the YouTube page and click the join button. Or you can also go to Rumble and do the same thing. It's called Locals. Click on that, and you can support us there. Locals is absolutely free. You can actually join up, and you can have access to some of the free content there. But what we're going to do, I'm going to talk about in the next segment, talk about our trip. Me, Jackie, and Alexis are going to Tampa for the Turning Point USA Young Leadership Summit. And I'm going to talk about that, the road trip, and how that's going to play out. But so to give us a few minutes here, I'm going to take a quick break for about 2 minutes, and we're going to jump right back and get into this. And I'm Kyle Suggs. I'm here with Alexis, and we're talking about all kind of cool stuff. Talk about, unfortunately, Ivana Trump died. There's a lot of stuff in the news today as well, maybe some current events as well. How long can you stay on, Alexis, right now?
Did you, by any chance, read your Signal message that I sent you?
Just now?
Yeah. Well, no, I sent it like 10 minutes ago.
Let me see. Hold on. That's why we can take a break. So
yeah. I can stay on for a little bit longer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick 2-minute break, and because I'm gonna fix your audio and fix my stuff here as well. So I'll see you back here in about 2 minutes. All right, we are back, and I got half the thing finished. What actually happened was the tater tots in the oven were burning, and so I was hearing a beeping sound upstairs. I'm like, "What is that beeping sound?" And now we went upstairs, and the tater tots are totally burned. My son's crying because that's the last of the big bag, and so now we have a crisis at the Suggs family. What are we gonna do? I think she's frozen. I'm going to fix that. I'm gonna get her off there, and I'm gonna try and go upstairs and fix hers. So her actual PC is not working, so I'm gonna go fix that. So give me another few minutes here to fix her actual monitor, and I'll be back in about, let's do another minute. All right, we're back. I got it fixed. So you back with this, Alexis?
I see you.
So the tater tot situation. So that's resolved. Our son's upset, and now we have a crisis situation, and it's horrible
because we're completely out of tater tots in the house. So I mean,
but anyway, so So anyway, let's go through some of these comments here. And you haven't met Mark Jackson on a live stream because this is your first live stream. So by the way, Alexa, this is your first live stream. How's it feel to be on the Conservative Take platform?
It's not as nerve-wracking as I originally thought. I'm doing my hardest, or trying my hardest, to not get the channel banned, and
Please.
So
let's get to 100,000 subscribers first. I get my little plaque, right? Or we get our little plaque on the back, and then we can get ourselves canceled.
I think that we just need to maybe do more on other platforms where there's no risk of that at all. And then if that episode happens to go, well enough that you feel it's YouTube approved, then you can also post it up here, because I feel like it's not really like there's anything that I want to say that I'm holding back, but I there's an undercurrent of like, don't say sucks. Anything.
It sucks so bad. I mean, I know how you feel, and I hate it. But I work so hard on this channel, and you see how I work on this. I mean, I pull all-nighters. I put an all-nighter a few days ago. I didn't sleep for literally 28 hours straight, and I thought I was going to kill myself because I thought I was seeing things. No, I'm serious. Ever since we got I mean, anyway.
I don't. Anyone who knows me in real life knows, me bridling my speech is not an area that I'm particularly skilled at. And so I feel like, I feel like I hope I'm a good representation, because I don't feel like this is necessarily my true and authentic self, which I know is so important to people, for you to be your true self. I'm not just telling my truth, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, tell you what, I mean, I want to kind of brag on you a little bit. I mean, I am seeing in the presence every single day when I'm with you, of course, and now virtually, of a NC2A Division I athlete. Let's talk about your career in Division I sports at a Big East school.
It was very short-lived.
Hey, it counts.
It was a lifetime ago. No one really cares.
I do. She was a water polo superstar as a freshman. And go look her up. You'll see how she got ejected from games and scored. She was the leading scorer for freshmen on your team. And that's pretty cool. As a guy, always wanting to be in NFL or playing at that level, it wasn't a possibility for me. I mean, just being on a high school team that was successful in basketball and starting the first game I ever started after trying so hard, and not doing very well starting, I must say, it's very difficult. So I applaud anyone who can make it to that level, at any sport for that matter, at the college level. It's amazing to me. It really is. So anyway, speaking of which, what do you think about LeBron James and the whole thing with Brittany Griner and the whole deal with her being locked up and him talking about, well, maybe she should stay in Russia since America isn't treating her well?
It's difficult to see that situation objectively, because it's so easy to say like, ha, because I feel like if it was someone that was a known, conservative person, she and LeBron would be some of the first people that were like, well, that's what they get. Maybe not publicly, but privately. And so, but I also feel like, how arrogant do you have to be? And that's the thing with that sector. Arrogance, it really is breathtaking, because, not only are you in a foreign country, but you're in a country that is not a known friend to the United States. Like, these are countries that will take any opportunity that they can to, either do something negative to the United States, or they don't play ball well. And I don't mean that pun, that I don't mean that. And so for her to be so arrogant that not only is she willing to take drugs to another country, but she's willing to take drugs to that country. Like, how stupid do you have to be? Do I think that she deserves the treatment that she's getting? I mean, she did break the rule of that country. But I also feel like was there no managers or team captains or somebody that knows this girl and said, you might want to leave that at home? You know, I don't know all the details, but I feel like she's just so dumb that I have trouble getting past that point. Like, are you really that stupid? So, you know, but and what I think's funny too is that these people are so brainwashed that it will never occur to her that Joe Biden is letting this happen. Kamala is letting this happen to her. For as much as I'm sure when those two were running, she wanted to capitalize on the fact that, you know, she thought Kamala was black. Meanwhile, if you look into her history, she's not really, but that's a side note. But she wanted to capitalize on that and, you know, use that identity aspect of her. Meanwhile, those people really don't give a crap about her. And I'm saying that as PG as I can. But in no way, if they were running again for office tomorrow, she'd vote for them again.
She would.
Because it's more than a brainwashing. It's a cult. It's a religion. It's a pathology with these people. It will never occur to her. Yet, as much as Donald Trump personally would not have liked her, I don't think that Donald Trump would have allowed this to go on as long as it has. He would have in some way found a way for her to get home. Even if it was, she's in jail right now, she gets time served, she can come home. He would have allowed, you know, Putin to save face, but he would have found a way for her to get home. And would that have changed how she viewed Trump? No, because she would have just thought, well, I never should have been there to begin with. You know, there's nothing you can do to these people to make them humble themselves.
And that's the irony of this whole thing. And if she hadn't said what she said about America and the whole WNBA thing and the whole BLM stuff, I don't think anyone really would have cared. It wouldn't have been we definitely would have gotten 10,000 views in that video or 24,000 views in that video, because it's the irony that attracted people's attention, that got people, you know, thinking and looking at it and laughing at it in a lot of ways. And so it's just fascinating how people just somehow just cannot connect the dots, you know. And you have LeBron James, who's a complete moron. Now he's trying to walk it back now because he's trying to say that, you know, he doesn't really mean. But that's what he means. That's how he feels. He's just too smart. Too smart now to know it's not smart to talk bad about America if you're trying to continue them as customers, you know, to continue your wealth that you're trying to do and your legacy. So anyway, I didn't want to get on that subject per se, but talking about water polo and that sort of thing got me thinking about it. So
I don't know nearly as much as you do about those two, because typically people that I can't stand, I don't watch videos about them. I don't read about them. I may hear of them in passing, and it's kind of in one ear, out the other. And I just think LeBron like disgusts me so much. I think he's so ungrateful, and you know, he completely has forgotten, you know, where he has come from, and so I don't ever want to read anything about him. People that I don't like, I don't want to read anything about you. I don't like you, you know.
Right. He's good for traffic though. So,
yeah.
Well, by the way, the Terratype gate is going to be resolved. I told Jonathan off camera here that I'm going to actually go to the store and buy some Terratots. So whether or not we'll have time to cook them tonight, we'll have to see. But he was distressed. He was hurt. And you know, for a 6-year-old, his little world is that, and so it means a lot to him in his little world. So, and frankly, Alexis, I'm feeling a little bit perturbed myself because I'll leave a picture. Did you throw them away?
Yeah,
you did. Oh,
yeah.
I was gonna get.
They were like little tiny hockey pucks. I mean, they're hard as a rock.
I'm gonna pull out.
There was no salvaging of them.
I'm gonna pull them out of the trash and get a picture and put it on our well, on Instagram.
I threw them out in the backyard. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, whatever. They're outside. Okay.
If the chickens want to peck at them, they can have at it.
Well, they're chicken fodder now. Mm-hmm. We're totally off the rails here. So let's talk about some current events here real quickly. I heard that Ivana Trump passed away. President Trump did a very touching message on his Truth Social, and hold on a second. Your son was jumping on his trampoline. I had to tell him to stop.
First world problems.
This is a whole new thing for me. I've never had a live call outside my own house.
He's not being a perfect little angel like you said he would be.
I said he would be, but I guess I opened the door by talking to him. So, all right. Anyway, but Ivana Trump passed away. Any thoughts there on that? I heard it was a cardiac arrest. And please don't mention the coup as being responsible for it.
Well, we'll never know.
Right. We'll never know. We don't know. But people are passing away at alarming rates for weird reasons. So I'll leave it at that. We'll talk about it off
I mean, she's probably in her late 60s?
73.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it could have been anything. Anytime, her children are, my age, a little bit older than me. And so I'm sad for her children because her children are sad and her children are, this day will be a big day in their eyes forever. And so I'm sad for her children.
Yeah, I am as well. I've been, as you know, I've been binge watching The Apprentice. I'm on season 5, and Ivanka just came on for the first time on season 5, just as a sub in for Carolyn. And I saw a message that said that Ivana died, and I read it as Ivanka died. And for that split, however long it was,
we would have known what it was that took her out.
I mean, this whole thing is just sucks. Okay, 100%. And we'll talk off camera on this all night probably. But, this whole thing just sucks. And this whole thing that this Biden administration, and I understand Trump was also involved in bringing that on there as well. But this whole situation is bad. And if you guys get a chance to listen to Steve Deace, I think he is probably, and I disagree with him on some things, mainly about his opinion on
only Trump. Because he doesn't love Trump as much as you do. Even though he does like Trump, he just doesn't love Trump. So that's why you don't
That's the only reason. But everything he says other than that, other than his, I think he's fantastic. And so anyway, great. So I'm going to say her name wrong. I'm going to practice your name. I really am going to practice your name. Casimirine Kyrios. I'm going to practice that because it's disrespectful not to.
She can type how to phonetically say it in the next comment. So do that for us.
Well, she said I was close.
Oh, okay. So
short-lived or not, it's a unique sport. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great. And Mark Jackson, if you haven't had a chance to listen to this guy, he's just fantastic. Not that everybody is not. I mean, everybody here is fantastic, but Mark is he's been around for us for almost from the very beginning. I love it.
What is Griner? I don't know.
Brittany. That's Brittany Griner.
Oh, that's her last name.
Yeah.
You see how much I know. I mean, you're one of 12 people that actually watch women's basketball anyway.
Oh my goodness. I used to watch it all the time. I coached women's basketball as an assistant for a while, and I thought the sport was pure, maybe 10 years ago. Because, 10 years ago, you had the whole, I know you don't know this as much as maybe I do, but just to give you an idea, basketball for men became what you call it, a one-on-one game. Allen Iverson, give me the rock, I'm going to dribble around you through my legs, whatever. Forget teammates, right? I'm getting to the hole. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it, and it's an and-one philosophy. And so women, the game was more pure. It was a fundamental game. The lanes were nice and tight and short, and it was passing, and it was rebounding, and every fast break, you never knew because they can miss a layup, right? So it's exciting. But now they've incorporated all that BS in their leagues too, so it's worse on both levels. And so I don't watch it anymore, but I used to love watching women's basketball. I went to Duke versus Maryland at Cameron Indoor Stadium when Maryland was number 1 and Duke was number 2. And those days are over. And I'm afraid women's sports are going to be gone. What do you think about that, getting back to transgenderism and the whole women's movement? What do you think about women's sports and how that's going to go forward?
I don't know that it'll be gone, but I do think that there will be a trans person in every sport, on every team. It will completely change the makeup of the team and the dynamics of the team. And if there's not someone on your particular team or your child's team that's transgender, there will be on the team that they play against. And so even if your team does try to do the right thing, if the team you're playing against has somebody that's, 6 feet tall and 200 pounds at 15 years old, good luck. And, I hear these girls making the claims that, well, if we didn't compete, we'd be kicked off our team, lose our scholarship. And I'm like, but until you're willing to do that, you won't win either. So yes, you can compete and now you lose. And now you still are at risk of losing your scholarship because now you're way further down. And I genuinely do not believe that if 50% of the women said we're not competing, that they all would get kicked off their teams. I think that, and Steve Day says this all the time, we are not a country of political ideas. We are a country of political will. And that the will for anything is what supersedes the ideal. And so right now, the will of the transgender movement is winning. But and so the silent, majority doesn't matter because they're silent. We all admit that they're a minority, but they're loud and persistent. And so at the end of the day, all that really matters is who's loud and who's persistent. That's another reason why I don't like to, and you're welcome to interject if I'm getting too close to the edge, but I've had discussions with other family members that act like, well, the amount of a religious group that starts with the letter M, there's such a small percentage of them that are radicalized.
Yeah.
That, we really shouldn't give them any credence, or
it's not Mormon.
Don't judge. Oh yeah, it's not Mormon.
Sorry, go ahead.
Don't forget about the 800 million or 900 million, if there is a billion of them in the world, that are not radicalized, which number one, we can debate on what percent is radical and what percent is not. But the non-radical ones are not the ones blowing things up and taking down the Twin Towers. So I really don't care who's not radicalized and who's peaceful, etc.
Yeah, it's enough. It's enough to be a problem. Exactly. So I had lost my train of thought there, but no.
I'd like to go back to Mark's comment. If you can put that back up on the screen.
This one here.
I had something I wanted to add to it. No, the one before that, actually. Right. Yeah. So Griner got more legal representation. For the audience, both now and anybody who watches this later, somebody to watch out for is, and I forget his name, but when I describe him, there's only going to be one of him. There is a black man right now that's a former NFL player running for Congress in Arizona. He's just recently started putting out like some promo videos and stuff. Kyle, he was the guy who had the AR-15 with the promo video about, the Klan hoods. And, he has said that one of the things that he wants to do once he wins is he wants to sue basically the jail as well as the January 6th committee for, not really doing anything about these people that have been sitting in jail for now a year and a half. And so it reminded me of that when Mark made his comment. And so keep an eye out for that guy.
I'm looking him up now. His name is Jerome Davidson.
Yes, that's his name.
Jerome Davidson. And I right now have Newsweek up, and they're blasting him because.
Of course.
So, but I'm gonna pull one up here and see if I can find his website. Yeah, he's fantastic. Here's Jerome. Is Jerome or Jerome Davis?
Jerome.
Okay,
Jerome.
Let me pull him up here. Good. So this is his site here. So yeah, I was super impressed by this guy, and I'm gonna do a video. I've been working on this video, and it's basically does it mean to be an America First Republican, and it's not about Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. It's just that Trump was the one to really make it popular and cool and all that stuff. But Forbes kind of had that philosophy, and even Ross Perot to a lesser extent had that philosophy. This whole thing, that sucking sound you hear going to Mexico, that whole thing with NAFTA. He said that's not going to be cool, and so that was brewing and brewing and brewing, and now we have even Newt Gingrich, not so much, but Herman Cain was heading in that direction, but Trump was kind of the guy. But this guy right here is the guy talking the message at a level that's hardcore, in your face. Kerry Lakes in Arizona as well, same kind of deal. Even DeSantis to a lesser extent, because DeSantis doesn't go hard like this guy. But what do you think?
He maybe not in his verbiage, but I don't think that DeSantis would disagree with anything that Jerome says. I bet those two are two peas in a pod.
100%.
And I personally am at a place where there is no room for the McCains and the Romneys of the world anymore. If you are not a Ron DeSantis, or even more so, then I don't feel that you will actually play offense. All you will do is just continue to play defense. And our lack of playing offense has been extremely destructive.
Yeah, in fact, this is what this guy was talking about, and he was talking about red eagle politics. He got a good video. It's about last week. I'm going to basically do a video on that framework, and it basically is like that. We can't apologize when it comes to illegal immigration. We're really for no immigration at this point. We want to find out who's actually in this country. If they're here illegally, let's do something about it. Get rid of them. Have a statement or a ruling on the situation with DACA, because that's still a constitutional
ambiguity.
Thank you so much. But that needs to be dealt with. And then when we do immigration again, it needs to be a merit-based immigration policy. That's going to help everybody, And so I think that's the approach. And also to your point, Alexis, you mentioned about we can't be passive. And part of it is going after these liberals, the media, like Kerry Lakes does, like Trump can do, like DeSantis does, and this guy here, Jerome Davidson does, is take them to task. And I mentioned this last week, use our political power in the legal way. Like I said nowadays, because people they'll call me something if I don't say that. But use political power in the way that's going to benefit our party and our cause, just like they do. We have to play to win. We can't be sitting back here and just sitting back and hoping that they're going to do right by us when they're not.
So to kind of piggyback off of that, tonight, so our son does jiu-jitsu. Tonight I took him to jiu-jitsu, and at the very end, they often will play a game. But right before they play a game, they had this, a little exercise where they wrapped a string around the waist of each child. Now this class is like 3-year-olds up through like 7-year-olds. So these kids are all, young, but they paired the kids up that were about the same size, and they wrapped a string around their waist. Everyone can see you don't know what tater tots are? That is terrible. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to say. Okay. We'll have to come back to that. So they wrap a string around their waist and on like a carabiner, and then they tied the carabiner to each kid's belt, and they had these cones out, and there was maybe 6 foot of string in between them, and the cones are like 10 feet down in front of each of the kids. And, they would say go, and the kids had to, kind of crawl to their cone, pulling the other kid behind them, right? So can you imagine this activity?
Yes.
And the kid who won was not the kid who was trying to just not let the other kid pull them. The kid who ended up winning is the kid who was looking at the cone and had a clear goal and a clear objective that they were pushing through to get to the cone. Does that make sense? So just trying to fight against the other kid and not allow them to pull you was not going to help you win. It was that you were looking forward, you were looking to your cone, you had your objective, you had your goal, and that's what you were, you were pulling towards. And I feel like that is a perfect, representation of how the parties are right now. The Democrats have clear goals, clear objectives that they are pulling or, striving to go to. And all we're doing is we're trying to pull them back this way versus us having our own clear goals and clear objectives of things that we're trying to push through. We're not really pushing through our own things. We're just fighting against them. Whereas I feel like if we pass legislation that said, like, I don't know, everyone's required to have some sort of a gun, they'd lose their minds, and then they would push back against us versus us constantly having to fight against what is the verbiage they like to use? Something like responsible gun laws or something like that. Whereas, how I feel, shall not be infringed means nothing. I want none.
Well, talk about keep it thought. Tim Pool. Once you finish that, mention Tim Pool, his position, who he is, and
I do watch Tim Pool. It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day. I watched Tim Pool IRL, which is his nightly show. I think it starts at 8:00. He always has a guest on, or 2 or 3. But I never watch it for Tim Pool's perspective. I actually don't really care for him that much. I love the guests that he usually has on, especially if he has James O'Keefe or Michael Malice or, some of those people. I love both of them.
These comments are funny. I'm sorry. These comments are hilarious. That's why I'm laughing. I'm sorry, guys. Go ahead.
And so Tim Pool has that same opinion, even though he's actually center left on many, many issues. When it comes to the Second Amendment, he is as far right as they could go, which to me is just a constitutional conservative. Like, that's how far off track we've gotten. When you actually believe the Constitution, you're far right. But he believes that there should be 0 gun laws at all. And I totally agree. Other than maybe you have to be of a certain age. That's it. If a regular citizen wants to have a tank, if a regular citizen, wants to have, I don't know, any kind of gun, they should be fully allowed to have a gun.
Yeah,
you could maybe make the argument against a tank because that's not a gun, but anything that is a gun, I think anyone should be allowed to have.
You can just have
have as many as you want and as many bullets as you want.
You can just have the cannon, right?
Yes, the cannon. There you go.
You could just have that. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's a very. If you go back and look at it, the people in the militia, and the people who were still civilians, they had cannons. Not many. I mean, they were hard to come by. But you could own a cannon if you wanted one. And that's definitely a military grade weapon back then. And the muskets that they had back then were military grade, most of them. And the people on the militia who are out there, the frontiersmen, they absolutely had military grade weapons because they were accurate. A lot of them were actually even not smoothbore, but they were rimmed, and so they could actually have way more accurate shots. So that argument in terms of it can't be military grade, I think, like you said before, shall not be infringed means exactly what it says.
And everything was military grade in 1776. There was no gun that you would have at your house. It was the same gun because when they signed up to fight, they took their own guns.
They took their own guns, yeah. And even the single shot Derringer type guns, even they were used as a single shot in case you got into a jam, you could whip it out and use it. So a black powder, that is. So okay, a bunch of comments here. By the way, you guys have an idea now why I married this woman. I mean, she's fantastic. I mean, we have these discussions all the time.
This is our life, yes.
This is our life. Mark's his comments just had me cracking up, man. So it's funny because you'll say something that's really not funny, and I'm reading a comment and bursting out laughing. I'm like, "That Kyle, you're a jerk." No, I'm just reading the comments. I'm sorry. Tater tots, absolutely. So here we go. Here, I would expand on the trans thing to will to win. I think it comes from the honesty or brainwashed into thinking they will be murdered. You're right. I'll add fake desperation.
I think that you can get some of the younger ones to believe that because they're naive. If they're 14, 15. These people that are 38 years old, they know good and well nobody's trying to kill trans people. They know good and well that, pushing a 12-year-old to take drugs that will make them sterile, and pushing prepubescent kids to take drugs so that they'll never be able to experience the feelings that puberty provides, is they don't know that that's wrong, because, and we've had discussions about this, whether, they're just straight up like demonic. Like, there is to me no secular way to say this anymore. We are past that point. People on Steve Days talk about like we're post argument. We are at a phase where it's just straight demonic. And they say that. They'll be like, it's just demonic, bro.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they say on the show. And I feel like that's how we are. Some of these people that push what they do for younger and younger and younger children, you just wonder, or at least I do, are they even capable of making their own thoughts? Or is every single thing that they say and do coming from the other world or the other side, however you want to verbalize it?
This might be sacrilegious, and I'll probably get some steam for this, but I'm going to preface it by saying I love Rush Limbaugh. He is the reason why I'm doing this show. He's the one that gave me the talking points, and I subscribe to his show for many years, EIB. Listen to it from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock every single day, and the transcripts, I was on top of that. But I think Steve Dace is really the person who could be the heir apparent for Rush Limbaugh, and in the way, because he sees the world in a way that a lot of us don't see it. And Rush Limbaugh saw the world at a time when he came in way most people didn't see it. He saw conservatism at a level right above, I forget his mentor was up in New York, they're conservative up there, I can't remember his name. But he took it to another level, and I think Steve Dace is taking it to another level from a spiritual level. And he's well-rounded enough. He's a movie producer, and he writes books, and he likes sports. He keeps it light. He's funny. Rush was funny. And he actually took over Glenn Beck's show. He's on the Blaze, by the way, for a whole show. And so I think he could be that next heir apparent. The world's different now. It's not just Rush anymore. He was the only guy on the scene. But when we think about Steve Dace, I hate to keep talking about him, but I think he is important enough to focus on, because I think he has the right perspective at a time when we need it the most.
Yeah, I mean, especially the two people that he works with. And hold on one second. Yes, you should go downstairs. I told you he would not leave me alone. So I think that it's him, and then he has like a co-host, and then his producer. And between the three of them, they're just genius. They really talk about things that I feel like people are not talking about, because he's not just talking about politics, but he really brings in from a Christian worldview and the religious component to it. And so the merger of both of those makes it just really different. I can't think of really any other show that discusses things the way that he does. Maybe Allie Beth Stuckey, because she is a very strong Christian as well, but the format of her show is different.
Yeah, he's very funny. He does the skits. Tell her the skit he did, because Rush Limbaugh did a lot of skits too. He did a lot of audio memes, I call them. But tell her the skit he did. It's so hilarious. The Christmas one, right?
Oh my gosh. I played that for months.
How good was that?
Oh yes, that was incredible. So those of you that live in the States and are a little bit older, like I would say at least 35, you're going to remember when we were kids, or maybe even when we were in our 20s, there would be those Time Life CDs that would come out that would be like all country singers or all pop singers or whatever. And they would be CDs that you could buy. And so he made one of those in like a jingle. And the CD was all these very famous Christmas songs, but he changed the title of the song. And so, gosh, I almost wish you could play it, but then you probably would not, like you'd have to non-monetize your channel or whatever. But it was hilarious. Like, everyone should go look it up. Just go to the Steve Dace channel, go to wherever you can find, like back in December or even in November. But he all the songs had the same tune, but he changed the first couple of words. And so on his little skit that he did, he would play the words, almost like karaoke, to where you could see them. And then there would be the jingle playing, and they were all about like Fauci and Joe Biden, and they were just hilarious and
incredible.
To the point where my 6-year-old was walking around singing them, in like February and March. I mean, they were just so funny.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm saying. That's the thing. When you get people laughing, you get them listening to you. And he talks about sports and pop culture. And Rush did the same thing. Rush loves sports.
His job before he was in politics was a sports commentator. So that was actually how he primarily earned his living for a long time. So he's very well versed in sports as well.
Okay, so I don't want to jump. I mean, I'm not gonna take any more breaks. We're gonna wrap it up in a little bit here, but I do want to talk about the trip we're gonna take to Tampa, and after that, we'll go through the comments, and then we'll wrap this thing up because I can see my son's interrupting. You kind of heard his voice there a second ago. So let's talk about the trip to Tampa. Are you excited about the trip we're gonna take in a few days?
I am. Yeah. No, I think it'll be a great opportunity to network with a lot of people that are like-minded, and I hope to, maybe rub shoulders with or get to speak with some people that are both, very well established in the political space, but then also, up and coming. So in terms of who wins a cage fight, while I think that DeSantis is physically stronger, I think that Trump is insane. And so Trump would win.
Plus he's like 6'2", like 300 pounds almost now.
Oh, DeSantis is no shrimp. Yeah. But Trump is a very like whatever needs to be done to get the job done kind of person.
Right. Yeah,
as you've seen from The Apprentice.
By the way, let me just put this on the screen here. Yes, I love The Apprentice, by the way. Have your sons be a little quiet over there, please. Okay, see this right here? It says Trump has decided he's going to reportedly announce before the midterms. And once again, I was right. And I did a video on this, or whatever. Last week I did on this. He's going to run for the reasons probably I mentioned, but he probably won't say those reasons because, it's just not politically expedient to say I'm doing it because I'm trying to get ahead of the, my competitors or the January 6th committee, whatever.
Well, also, I believe once you run, now you have to do things in a certain way. And so it just there's no benefit to announcing that you're going to run this early when now you're going to have to really, dot your I's and cross your T's. And they already are down his throat with things that are not even legitimate. So they would love to be able to scrutinize him for another, year and a half.
Yeah. And plus,
so I don't see the benefit of it.
Well, we can raise money early because once you have your committee raised, you can do that stuff too. By the way, Ethan, I love fish and chips. I love fish. Do I love fish, Alexis?
Yes. When we were dating, literally every single restaurant that we would go to, you would get fish. Every single one. And I can't stand fish. And so I was like, ugh. But it's all worked out.
Tip Pool. I don't like Tim Pool. I mean, when I heard him tell the story about how he grew up, I felt really bad for the guy. And I can see his tenacious nature. But when he some guy had a rapper on the show and they got to altercation, and I think Tim Pool was pushing the buttons he really shouldn't have. He didn't recognize this guy was about to beat him up. He didn't have the situational awareness or the personality perception to know that this brother is getting mad at you. He's about to come across that table and handle his business. And he kept poking him. So I thought maybe he's kind of a jerk. I don't know, but he does have good content and he does say some things. But that one guy, the long hair, he's got to go.
I don't really understand why I shouldn't say that. I know why he's there because, well, I'll just say it. I think that Tim likes to establish that he's here and the other guests are here. Now, the other guests can get here, but don't you dare try to get here, and you really better not try to get here. And so Ian knows his role and his place, and he always stays over here and never really challenges Tim too much because in my from my perception of being in, the viewing audience, Tim does not really like to get challenged.
Yeah, I think he nailed that one so much on that one. He says 155 millimeter per solid projectiles only is allowed. Kyle, on the message, I believe you mean. Thank you, rifle barrels. You got my back, man. You got my back. I said rim barrels, and this is a family show, so let's keep going. I actually support Tim Pool because he's a lefty that sees. And you know what, Jackie and I, hey, Jackie, should I let the cat out of the bag of our program that we're going to talk about, or should I just not say it? Because we're going to talk about these guys, the Tim Pools, the guy on the Meyer, several others that every now and then they'll say something that's actually pretty cool. So the next show me and Jackie do is going to cover those guys and have a good time talking about it, because there are leftists that do actually say things that are true every now and then, right?
Yes. I wouldn't say leftists, but because he wouldn't describe himself as a leftist. He might call himself center left, but
fair.
But I also think that, again, no one really challenges Tim on the left policies that he believes, and he keeps drifting further and further to the right. So the things that and I think he would even admit some of the things that are more towards the left, like social programs, he agrees with them in concept, but he can't stand the actual application of all of them that have been tried. And so to me, if you agree with something in concept, but you acknowledge that in reality, you can't ever really implement that thing, then you need to let the left go, and you need to operate over in reality and what is actually possible. Because yes, we all would love a utopia, but conservatives and Republicans are so well aware that a utopia will never, ever, ever happen that we don't even hold on to any notion that it can, because we know it won't.
Right, exactly.
It's DEACE, so it sounds like Deece, but it's pronounced Dace, so it's DEACE.
I got this. Yeah, I got this microphone here. I'm going to mute my microphone so you won't hear all the noise.
I didn't hear anything, but
no, I muted it because I didn't want you to hear it while I was moving it. It's
okay.
So that's why I can't type, because it's like here. I need more. We need a bigger budget. Now's a good time.
Can you pull up Steve Dace's picture maybe?
Yeah, let me mute my microphone.
Move us over so they can see him. What do you want? Oh, why don't you go down? He's such a ham, just like his dad. He can't help himself. You're still on mute, so no one can hear you.
Okay, I muted the microphone for him too. So what did he say?
I don't even know what he was trying to talk to me about. I just said to go downstairs to be with Daddy. So when you go looking for his channel, I think you'll see the one where he's pulling on his tie. That's what his thumbnail image, I think, looks like. I don't know if you want to try and pull that up on YouTube or whatever, but anyway, yeah, he's affiliated with the Blaze, so we have a Blaze subscription, and that's where I watch him. But you can also watch him on Rumble, anywhere that you watch podcasts. You can find him. So yeah,
why isn't he in the main section here on the shows? He should have like his own. Well, anyway,
because I still feel like he is under the radar. Scroll down a little bit. Oh, scroll down.
I can't. Oh, man, I can't. Hold on. See, he's not even there.
Yeah. I guess he's not as popular, but it will not be that way for long.
No, it won't. It won't. Yeah. Can you have him stop that?
Jonathan, please.
So I'm muting the microphone. Does anybody here in the chat have kids? I guess I shouldn't really care. He's 6 years old. He's having fun. I guess I shouldn't care. I shouldn't really care. I mean, this is a family program. So, but anyway, so yeah.
What else was on your list?
Oh, that was it. Just to go with election integrity. So you were working on something of a podcast every week about North Carolina and about election integrity. What's going on there in terms of what you see in terms of the country, in terms of state to state? I mean, various things are happening, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Pennsylvania, but nothing that I see at a consistent level in terms of, that's concerned.
Right. I mean, I can't speak for other states, but for sure in North Carolina, over the last maybe 6 months, I have started to get more involved into things related to election integrity and the election process and how things work. And what the major takeaway that I have, honestly, is that I was shocked at how uninvolved Republicans have been for decades. Like, I'm talking literally like 40 years. They've been so uninvolved that it was easy for Democrats to just completely take over that area of life. And there are many, many aspects of elections that have nothing to do with showing up at a polling site and casting your vote. There's so much that happens before, and there's so much that happens afterwards. And so the ugly truth of it is that coming to vote is the most basic, minuscule, really, amount of involvement that you could have. There really is a ton more involvement to be had, and there are so many different areas that either illegal activity takes place or just activity that is unethical. Even if something is legal, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's ethical. And so there's so much more room for people to get involved than they realize, even if it's something as small as going to where your Board of Elections meetings are. Like in North Carolina, they're once or twice a week or once or twice a month. You can go there and just sit in on the meetings and just listen. You don't have to speak. You don't have to give your opinions. That you literally can just sit there and listen and learn what they're talking about and what they're trying to push or pass or change. And so then you at least can be a little bit more knowledgeable and educated as to what's going on in your state. But there are a lot of people in other states that I think are making changes, but it's like turning the Titanic. I mean, I think most people had no idea how bad things really were. And from what I have learned, it seems to literally stem back to there was someone in New Jersey, I think it was, literally in 1985, who did some downright illegal and shady things. And so I guess part of that person's or the RNC of New Jersey, their settlement, or maybe the national RNC, was that they're not going to be involved in canvassing, or they're not going to be involved in local or the election process. And while that started in New Jersey, it just morphed into every state until literally the judge that was involved in that case finally died within the last 6 months. And so more and more states now are finally saying, okay, we're going to, the RNC, we're going to get involved again. I mean, it blows your mind. It's like, if you ever heard something and you just can't believe it, even if 20 people, you can't believe that really happened. And that's how it is with this thing that happened in New Jersey back in the 80s. And so finally the judges died, and now I guess everyone finally feels free to, whether it's their state or with the federal RNC, to get more involved. I mean, I personally think the reason why they didn't get involved to stop some of this
corruption?
I don't know what, corruption, for lack of a better word, is because they were using some of the same tactics.
Oh, sure.
Because in places like North Carolina, we have one of the worst governors. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. And we've had many talks about how I don't even understand how someone could vote for Donald Trump and then turn around and vote for Roy Cooper. They're so polar opposite. They just don't, it doesn't really make any logical sense. So
Yeah, there's definitely you scratch my back, I scratch yours stuff going on in politics, and the whole swamp thing came up through the Whigs and the Democrats all the way up to Lincoln, and then when the Whigs were destroyed, the Republicans got into their own level of corruption up into the 50s and 60s, and so now we have another thing where the Republican Party is being rebuilt based on America First. And even if that does happen, human nature, even in 20 years from now, even if it's perfect today, it's going to be broken in 30 years. So every generation is going to have to take up I don't want to use the cross because that's a bad thing to use, but you know what I'm talking about, the burden of the generation before. I think take up the cross is something more important. I think we need to take up the cross of Christ and bear that every day. That's what I meant to say. So, yeah, so it's just it's really frustrating at times. And I remember when at the election, I was totally in a depressed state. I felt like, what's the point? But at this point in time, I think we have no choice. We have to fight the fight. I mean, what if George Washington gave up? What if Lincoln gave up? What if Frederick Douglass gave up? So
yeah, and we've had discussions about how, in the Bible, God allowed his people to, quote unquote, get behind the eight ball many, many times. And he allowed them to get so far behind the eight ball that when they had victory, they knew it was God and that they couldn't lean on their own strength or that they got themselves out of that situation. And I think that we're at that place here. There's only so far that he's going to let America suffer.
Yeah, I hope you're right there. I hope you're right. I think you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Casa Marine said this same to your same point there. Gotta get tougher, man. Gotta get tougher. And Mark here says, "Enjoy Tampa. Nice to hear from you, Alexis. If you ever want honey smokes, Mark has my back."
Yeah, he loves salmon, and I feel like that would be the only food served to me if I was in hell. Like, I can't stand salmon, so I think it's funny that God has a sense of humor for sure.
And I'm pretty sure Mark doesn't know I love salmon unless you're tapping my phone, Mark. So yeah. So okay. Great.
Well, I just wanted to comment on. There was another person.
Okay. Casa Marine there.
Yes, that one. Okay. Yeah, and I totally agree. And it's not even just Republicans. I mean, over the last 2 years, how many times, Kyle, have I complained about how I feel like everyone is a bunch of pansies. Everyone is too weak to push back on anything, no matter what it is. They just say, "Oh, okay. Like my 4-year-old needs to wear a mask for 10 hours a day. Okay. I can't go to an outdoor baseball game sitting 10 seats away from someone without, having to bring my vaccine card and wear my mask." Okay. I mean, no matter what it is. We personally know people that have been fired from their job for not getting the vaccine. And while I don't fault any individual for not suing a company, I don't think there's enough companies that have been sued. I don't think, to me, the federal government should be sued. How they can push these soldiers to take this vaccine, or else, they're going to be kicked out of the military. I don't see how that's legal. I just feel like we just have not been fighting, and not just not fighting hard enough, like not fighting at all.
Yeah, it's 250,000, I think, a little bit over that could be expelled. We need good people to defend this country. There's just so much going on in terms of breaking this country down from all kind of levels. Mm-hmm. So what I've done is I've actually starred all the comments that maybe I now talked about were pretty interesting. I think I covered just about all of them in terms of putting them on the screen. So what I'm going to do now, Alexa, I'm going to go through the comments and thank everyone who came on the stream. And I'm going to give you a chance to tell everyone how to get in contact with you. And if you want to promote anything that you do, I know you have your own business. Well, you can promote that if you like, how they get in contact with you, especially dealing with homesteading. And that will be it. Is there anything that you want to get on topic-wise before I get into the comments?
I don't think so. I really wasn't sure how things were supposed to go, and we've already been chatting quite a while. Most people, I'll just say that if you look up Alexis Suggs on anywhere, you'll more than likely find me. So, and if not, you can always reach out to Kyle if there was something that you had a specific question about, but we appreciate your viewership and look forward to seeing you in a future video.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexis. Ethan does have a new YouTube channel. It's awesome. I want to thank Kazaramain Kurios to come on. I'm see this says there. Yeah, 72 gender. She mentioned that earlier. I didn't get a chance to talk about it. I only put it up on the screen. And yes, your wife is stunning, Mr. Suggs. Yeah. Thank you. What else? I'm not to mention this one before. Thank you, Ethan, for coming on as a new member. As he upgraded his membership, by the way, which is fantastic. He's been very supportive. I'm really humble. Thank you so much, Ethan. And Mark coming on board, of course. You know, it wouldn't be the same without you. And Jerry she's like my number one friend right now on Facebook. I mean, she's just fantastic. We comment all the time on each other's posts, and it's just good to have support staff. You know, even if it is, and most people I never even met, which is why I'm looking forward to going to Tampa, because I will meet a lot of people that I've never met. They're on Facebook and not on Twitter, but you know, wherever they are, like Callie and John. I get a chance to meet them, so I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully what we'll do is, I'm not sure how we're going to do it format wise. I'm going to be doing some live blogging, streaming, whatever, and letting you know what's going on. And by the way, for those who are joining as a member of the YouTube channel, excuse me, I'm going to be doing a video of all of my equipment that I have ready to go. I'm going to do a video blog. So if you're a paid member, I'm going to show you all the equipment that I've done, my thought process of what I'm bringing. You're going to think I'm insane, but I'm going to have enough stuff that when I get down there, I'm not going to worry about having the wrong thing. I want solutions waiting for a problem. I don't want problems looking for a solution. So I'm packing a lot of stuff for this trip. So it should be pretty fun. Basically Teratots, man. Yeah. Oh, by the way, you can comment later if you want, Ethan. But haggis, have you ever had haggis? I'm curious about that. That's more of a Scottish dish. I think. And Jackie, as always, thank you, and thank you for the super sticker as well, Ethan. Very good. And that's all I have. And Break Up Big Pharmacy will be the last comment that I'm going to talk about now. And by the way, I did put this up on the screen real quickly. It sounds like Twitter is being upset now with Elon for using the poop emoji to disparage them. They're actually considering suing him for that. So talk about the pot calling the kettle black there. Anyway, okay. So everybody, unless you have anything else you want to say, Alexis, I'm going to close it out here. We've been going on for about an hour and 51 minutes. I'm going to go to the store and get some Teratots for my son. He probably won't get them tonight. He'll probably get them tomorrow, maybe. But that's all I've got for this show.
No, if there's any other questions or topics that someone has, definitely put them down for future videos, because there are a lot more things that I think integrate well with having a conservative and a Christian worldview than just politics.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, everybody. With that, I'm going to stop it here. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go to locals immediately. I'm going to give it about 30 minutes because last time I couldn't get on because it was actually a conflict between my cam and my cam on locals. Didn't like it, so I had to stop. So in about 30 minutes, I go live on locals. Look for that. And that's going to be it. So everyone, thank you so much for coming on the Kyle Suggs Show with Alexis Suggs. And hopefully you'll come back. Will you come back on the show? Will you never, ever again be seen with me virtually? I guess that's the answer there. Okay, everybody. I'll see you next time.